Okay, we are recording, and let me say also that this is Catherine Duffy, and this is the Province 5 Christian Care Network meeting for February 2021. It is February 1st, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 Central. So, saying that, we have Dawn Barnes joining us today. She is the Regional Director. Oh, sorry, can you not hear me? Am I too quiet?
I can. I just wanted to also mention that this is also Province 4.
Siri, I'm sorry. Yes. I apologize. That was completely, of course, unintentional. You know that I appreciate your presence, of course. We've joined forces with Province 4, so this is a joint meeting. We would call it Province 9 if there weren't already a Province 9. This is a joint meeting of Province 4 and Province 5. Christian Care Network and Environmental Network for Province 4. So we have some new faces today. Do you know what I think I may do, actually, since we do have new faces, is leverage our breakout rooms. It'll just give people a chance to do a little bit more of an introduction without taking up 3/4 of our meeting with introduction. So I think I will do that. We'll split into three breakout rooms, and hopefully there'll be a mix in each room of people who have been here before and those who've not been here before. Please know somebody's going to get the phantom Catherine Duffy who won't be talking, so just ignore that when you get my second iteration of myself in your breakout room. But let's take about 10 minutes in our breakout rooms to just introduce yourself, where you're from, why you showed up, what you're hoping for in any role that you're currently doing in Christian care, and just maybe what you'd like to see in your parish and your diocese, because this really is a networking opportunity. And then when we get back, which will be about 11:16 Eastern, we'll move into working with Dawn, our special guest. And Dawn, if you don't mind, I think you're going to get dropped into a breakout room as well. Welcome back, everybody. I hope that there's some good connections going on. I always love to do the introductions in the big group, so we can all see everybody, but also in the smaller groups, you can have some closer conversations. So it's good to see you all. Let me reintroduce myself for anybody that came late. My name is Catherine Duffy. I'm the convener of the Province 5 Creation Care Network, based in Columbus, Ohio, not currently in Columbus, Ohio, but that is where I live, where my feet are on the ground, and a member of All Saints Episcopal in New Albany, Ohio. And then, Jerry, do you want to do a quick introduction of yourself as the Province 4 leader?
Yeah, I can do that. I'm avoiding video because my wife is also on a Zoom meeting in this very moment, and our internet's just not very good. But Province 4, yes. So I have the same role in Province 4, which, if I put a map up, would be the southeastern part of the United States, from Kentucky to Florida, North Carolina to Nolens, I guess. And I'm a priest in the Diocese of Kentucky, just outside of Louisville. And both Catherine and I also work a lot with on the board of the Center for Religion and Environment at the University of the South. So those things seem to occupy a lot of volunteer time. So there we go. So thanks.
We've already spent the morning together. So first Monday of the month, Jerry and I
we'll
get
just,
a lot of together time. So
all day. Yeah.
We recently decided to merge our network meetings because we've had so much synergy anyway. Jerry's been a faithful participant in our Province 5 meetings for quite a while, and we thought, gosh, why not bring our networks together and start doing some bigger things? And it's really been working out. So a couple of things before I turn the floor over to Dawn Barnes. I just want to announce two things that are floating to my mind, both of which will be announced in our Creation Care Network email, which will go out on the 20th of February. They've been going on the 15th, and we're going to shift to the 20th so we can work in better partnership with the Creation Care email that goes out from the presiding bishop's office. And Heather's going to paste the link to subscribe to the Creation Care email if you're not subscribed to it already, but I think most of you are. At the end of this month, the Center for Religion and Environment that Jerry just mentioned is going to host a webinar with Wilson Dickinson, who has joined our meetings before. He recently wrote a book called The Green Good News. He's a professor at Lexington Theological Seminary. And he'll be presenting on a little bit of his work in that area. Jerry, do you want to give a sentence on what Wilson's going to be talking about?
I think it'll be about his approach to the gospel, an ecological read of the gospel. It's some pretty heavy lifting, at least if not just in sophistication and scholarship, but in a radical reread of what Jesus was about and its implications for ecology and being an ecological citizen. So anyways, yeah, if you want to do some thinking, this is one of them to attend.
Yes, and I believe it's on the 25th, but again, the sign up for that will be forthcoming. I'll also, in a second, I'll paste into the chat how to sign up for the announcements for the Center for Religion and Environment if you'd like to keep closer tabs on that. And then also, this coming 2 weeks on the 13th of February, sponsored by the Diocese of Southern Ohio, is Absalom Jones Symposium. It's Saturday morning, and it's really going to cover a wide breadth of topics on environmental injustice. I'll paste a link to that as well into the chat if you're interested. It's free, open to anybody. You don't have to be in the Diocese of Southern Ohio, and it's just going to be a pretty compelling event. So I'll paste both of those into the chat. Enough from me. I'd really like to turn
Catherine?
The floor over to, yes.
Are they going to record that event?
Do you know, I don't know the answer to that. My gut says probably yes.
Okay, I mean, that's 5:30. That's 5:30 in the morning for me, and I would really appreciate it if it was recorded.
Okay, well, I'm not one of the organizers, but I'm hopeful that they will, and my guess is they will for people that are just in your same position. So, all right. So I'd like to turn the floor over to Dawn Barnes, who is the regional director for Indiana. I believe Indiana and Ohio is what you say too, because you're spreading, encompassing Ohio as well for the Society of St. Andrew. We've had so much energy around gleaning ministry in our provincial meetings, and especially in Ohio. Dawn is here to share a little bit about the Society of St. Andrew, about gleaning ministry, how you might be involved, what you might do if you'd like to get started on a parish level, or just interested more in what the Society of St. Andrews does. And she has just a wide breadth of history in this particular area, and community development and agriculture in parts of Africa. She's worked as a mental health clinician and is ordained in Disciples of Christ. Really has dedicated her life to helping others. And we're just really grateful to have Dawn here with us today to talk a little bit more about gleaning ministry. So Dawn, I'm going to stop, let you say anything else about yourself that you'd like to, and then go ahead and just take it from here. And let me just quadruple check that you can share. And I think maybe you can't. So let me just, now you should be able to share.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Thanks to Catherine for organizing and reaching out. And so I'm Dawn Barnes, and as Catherine said, I'm the Indiana Regional Director here in Society of St. Andrew, and somebody's knocking at my door. And I'm the only one in the whole building. So I'm not sure if they're gonna go away or not, sorry.
You want us to give you a break and let you come back? Do you need to go do that?
Yes, one second. I am so sorry.
We can keep the entertainment going till you come back. I guess.
Yeah, and actually, while we're waiting for Dawn, Mike, is there anything you want to say about gleaning? Well, tee Dawn up a little bit.
I will stop as soon as Dawn comes back, but the spark, here we go.
Okay, sorry.
The spark was actually
you're live on a Zoom call. My office is we're in a small Methodist church here in Indianapolis, where all of our offices are housed, and I'm really the only one ever in the building, and my coworker just left. So we, let's see, Dawn, I know about Society of St. Andrew. I am ordained with the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, and I've served for 12 years in Southern Africa, in South Africa and Mozambique, working primarily as a community developer around HIV and AIDS and agriculture. Returned back to the States and ended up in Indianapolis because of our disciples' home offices here, and went to work with our refugee redevelopment development fund for the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, where we partner with various partners around the world, and started a partnership with Society of St. Andrew back in 2014 or 15, and that is how I know Society of St. Andrew. But in between there, went back to South Africa with the Mennonites for a couple of years, and then came back, and Society of St. Andrew was looking to open an office in Indiana, and that's where I came back into play. So I opened this office in January of 2018 in Indiana, and thanks to Mike and Sue, there has been great energy around the Cincinnati area in Ohio, and Sue Plummer has just come on as the tri-state program coordinator which is a part-time position in Ohio, and so she will kind of be under our care here in Indiana, and hope to be able to expand a little bit throughout there. So I'm just going to share my screen and do walk through a bit of a general PowerPoint presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions afterwards. So let me get to sharing. Let's see. Can you see this? Can you see the PowerPoint? Okay, all right. We will walk through this. So our mission statement is to bring people together to harvest and share healthy food, to reduce food waste, and build community around all of those things by sharing healthy food with our hungry neighbors. So we are a national organization. I'm glad you're on, Jerry, to expand the breadth of information. We were founded back in 1979 in a very small town called Big Island, Virginia, which is right outside of Lynchburg, Virginia. It's a Methodist founded organization by a couple of Methodist ministers who began living in community, started farming, met other farmers, and began to realize the amount of food waste, specifically around potatoes, back in the 70s. And this was pre-Food Bank Day, so they started moving potatoes, and since then we are now an 8 regional office, primarily from Virginia down into Florida, and then the first hop across to the Midwest was Indiana. So we have 8 regional offices, and the newest one being here in Indiana. So we first will just talk about the food insecurity rate, and I specifically just have Indiana pulled up, but you probably all know the need in your own local community and what COVID has done around that. So here in Indiana, we're at just over in normal times at 13% food insecurity rate. Of course, the children's food insecurity rate is a little bit higher than that. And then looking at COVID, I just did this presentation last week to another group and pulled this off the Northwestern University site, who followed through 2020 to the end of December. And I looked again at the end of last week. They haven't updated for 2021. I don't know if they will continue to follow, but kind of the food insecurity rate. So the 2 lines, the purple line is specifically for Indiana, and then the other is the US. So here in Indiana, we jumped from a 13% to over 24% food insecurity rate throughout the period of COVID, and that looks pretty normal across the U.S. is in the 20s. So the need continued to rise, and we all have seen the food insecurity lines at food banks throughout the state, and I know for us, we've seen it personally in the work that we've done throughout 2020, and will continue into 2021. So paired with the food insecurity rate, there's also the amount of food waste that we have here in the U.S. And I just got some updated stats from the EPA, 103 million tons, 206 billion pounds, which is really hard to fathom, like how much is that? But kind of the visual, this is a bit more than what has been in the past, but the kind of the visual of that is a professional. I use the Colt Stadium here in Indianapolis as an example, being filled with food waste from the field up to the nosebleed section on a daily basis. That's kind of what that looks like. And then another kind of to wrap my mind around it, every ton of food waste equals about driving your car as far as like the gas emissions. Those are kind of general visual statements. And the reality is about 40% of our food never makes it to market for various reasons. There's waste at the farm level, there's waste in our transportation and our grocery stores and our homes. So not that is, there's multiple reasons for that food waste happening. And of course, this kind of triangle from the EPA of how we want our food to be used, of course, is not to end up in the landfill. And where Society of St. Andrew comes in is it's feeding the hungry people so that that meets what existing food is out in the system meets the best possible use of that. So what does all this have to do with gleaning? Some of you know this really well and have had that experience, and others not so much. But our mission comes from a faith-based perspective of the old biblical stories of Ruth, and it is about sharing the leftovers and sharing the abundance where none is wasted. Our name comes from the disciple Andrew that gave the bread to Jesus in the feeding of the 5,000. The definition is, to gather slowly or laboring bit by bit to gather what is left over. And that is just a little summary about where the shield that we use as our logo comes from. But it is the Old Testament story of Ruth, of leaving what the farmers left over in the corners of the field for those that are poor and orphaned. And if you fast forward to 2021, it's not quite the same story of Ruth, but it's very similar circumstances of where farmers have excess and we are able to gather volunteers to go in and glean that. So this is just a little overview of how we kind of operate. Our main niche is with gleaning on the farm. And so we do outreach to local farmers in their fields and packing houses. We glean community gardens and farmers markets as well. But we primarily spend here in Indiana our winter months doing outreach to farmers. And then when the season comes for us here, it begins maybe mid-June, late June, and we operate into October. If we have apples, late October, we're winding down for the year. But we gather volunteers of all ages are welcome to come out and glean with us. And then everything that we glean is donated directly to local hunger relief organizations. And we try to stay as local as possible. So local farm, local volunteers, local distribution. That looks a little different when you have a 200-acre cucumber farm versus a 20-pound box pickup of squash. So we try to start with a local hunger relief organizations that are closest to the farm, and then we move out from there. So if there's 10,000 pounds of apples, that's going to go probably to multiple counties throughout the state until we find homes for them. So we have no preference where the food goes, as long as it goes is given away for free. It can't be resold. So we've done refugee communities, low income housing. As long as it is given away, we don't care where that goes, and there's no cost involved that it is to the local organization. And then ultimately, of course, that feeds those who are food insecure in our neighborhoods. So that's a little bit about how we, as Society of St. Andrew, operate in all of our areas. And like I said, our main niche is on in farmers fields, but we do that. We also glean from farmers markets. We glean community gardens that grow specifically to give away. We will help organize volunteers to come in and help plant and harvest and deliver to food pantries. That has not been, we have one or two here in the Indianapolis area, but that was kind of difficult to cultivate over COVID. But it also looks different. In 2020, we were able to also help significantly with distribution with a USDA farm to family food boxes as well. So that is funding that came through our government, through the USDA, to help with that food waste. I don't know if you all saw it, but on the news early on in COVID, we saw, massive mounds of squash and zucchini in Florida going to waste. And there was a big upset over why is all this food waste happening? And then you pair that with the lines of the long queues of cars coming into the food banks. And so USDA developed these they're now called combo boxes of vegetables. They started out as vegetables and developed into vegetables, dairy, and meat that are 30 to 35 pound boxes that are being distributed throughout the US. And so we have been able to help with that distribution. In December, we had 11 different distribution points in Indiana and moving about 9 semi-loads a week. So we just have entered into the 5th round of that, and this week starts that program, and we have the same. We have 11 counties where we're doing about 9 semi-loads a week, a little bit less on this round because it's less funding, but that looks like a semi pulls up in a parking lot. We have volunteers, we unload the semi, and we have pantries lined up ahead of time that come through and pick up those boxes, and they take that back for distribution. We do have a couple of points where they're doing an individual drive-through where families can come and pick the boxes up as well. So we call that gleaning a parking lot sometimes, and that is been very creative throughout COVID for that. Some of the benefits that we have to offer to our farmers that glean with us is that they receive a tax statement at the end of the year. So we track the product that we glean, the number of pounds, and we're able to give that back to them that they can use on their taxes at the end of the year. But they're also covered on their distribution, on their donation under the Good Samaritan Care Act, that anything that's given in good faith is received in good faith. And they're covered because all of our volunteers sign a volunteer waiver. So there's no liability on the farmer for the donation or on volunteers being on their property. So they're covered on both of those ends. And we found that it's a great way for our farmers to connect with other people in the community, that they're able to share a little bit about their work. We learn about the waste that's on their farm and what they're farming, and some of the high points and some of the low points. It's just a great educational exchange between our volunteers and farmers. We do have a few farmers that don't want gleaners in the field, so they will actually harvest it and then we will just come and pick it up. So it's really up to the farmer's preference. And then we have several urban farmers that will just call us and say, hey, we have 30 pounds of carrots that are a little bit wonky and they're not going to sell at market. Do you want to come and pick them up? And we just have a volunteer go by and pick those up throughout the week. So we hone into what the farmer wants, what works best for them, and then we kind of craft that around that. Saturday, we did about 10,000 pounds of apples that were donated from an orchard that were pressing them for cider. They came out of Michigan into Indiana. They were doing cider. They're like, we've done enough cider. We still have all these bins. So they actually brought it to a place. We had volunteers come in and bag them up, and then we did a distribution on Saturday. So, and then the farmer came back and picked up his bin. So it was great. So we try to just work what's best and accommodate to our farmers. And of course, our volunteers are welcome of all ages. I've gleaned with a 9-month-old apples. We did a 200 cucumber farm last year where I had probably, I don't know his exact age, but he was in his late 80s, and he gleaned for about an hour, and then he sat down in the field and said, "I'm done now." And I said, "You were very well to be done." So everybody's welcome. We love to have young people come out and glean with us, because sometimes it's the first time that they've been able to make a connection. Oh, this is a potato that has come out of the earth that develops into a French fry. So that's a great connection that we love to make. But we do outreach to congregations, and last year, well, 2019, we developed a great relationship with the Future Farmers of America, the FFA. They have their national meeting here in Indianapolis every year, and we were able to cycle through about 200 FFA students to glean with us. And I would say that 98% of them had never heard of gleaning. It was a great learning opportunity for them. And yeah, so volunteers are welcome, and we can't actually do this work without our volunteers, so they're pretty vital to make this all happen. We, in each regional office, we are 2 staff. We are a director and a program coordinator that are 2 full-time staff, except for our office in North Carolina. We have more program coordinators because we have lots of sweet potatoes in North Carolina. But we can't operate without volunteers, so they are vital. And of course, our donors, we receive our funding through individual, through congregation. The directors do grant writing, so we have some grants that come through corporations and foundations, but those are our 3 main operating streams for funding. So here's a few pictures of gleaning. We have a group of volunteers here in Indiana that come through, or they were coming through pre-COVID, about once a month or once every other month, who would cut in that top corner. They cut these mesh bags for us, and they are measured out and cut and knotted and tied, so they look like what you buy your onions from in the grocery store, that kind of mesh that we keep on hand to take out into the fields to put our product in, and that's more easily distributable for the food pantries. So we have gleaned everything from tomatoes to watermelon to cucumbers to corn, and this last year our #1 product was corn here in Indiana, but the previous year was apples. So we never know. Every season is a new season of what farmers we have, and what the weather brings us, and what's going to be the best product. But we had 15 new farmers last year despite COVID, which was pretty fantastic, and most of those were corn farmers, sweet corn, not grain. And we also do these, like I was talking about the apples, bigger, what we call produce drops. Because our roots are with potatoes, we often have we have about 40 potato farmers that we work with that are throughout the US that will donate a semi-load of potatoes, and then we in turn help cover the cost of the freight and the packing on those. And so here in Indiana, we have a couple of congregations who do a potato drop every year. So these pictures are from potatoes, sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, where a semi shows up in the parking lot, and we have volunteers unload those and then distribute them within the community. So the semi usually shows up around 6:30, and by 11:30 we're done. Those happen on a Saturday morning for the most part, and those can vary. It could be potatoes, it could be whatever product is available that a farmer may donate, and kind of the goal is to do smaller one of these. So like that 10,000 pounds of apples, if there's larger amounts that can be put into smaller amounts and distributed, it doesn't always have to be a semi-load of anything. And these are some of our distributions that we did. I was talking about the farm to family food boxes, and this is just, if you haven't seen those are some of the boxes and what they look like. It's been absolutely amazing product. It is a logistical nightmare for both the distributor and for those who are distributing locally, but it is, we have distributed in the snow, and we have about probably 4 or 5 inches on the ground today that will be there tomorrow. I have 3 distributions tomorrow, so it's going to be fun stuff, and we make it happen. So and we like to have fun too, so usually it's hard work gleaning, but we really try to make it as fun as we can, of the product, and sometimes we get wonky ones and sometimes we get extra ones, and they're always usually full of love. So we are a faith-based organization, but we do not proselytize in the field. We welcome all faiths, but we do have faith-based resources, and some of you may be familiar with those, but from Advent to Lent to alternative Christmas cards. We have an amazing, I highly recommend our Vacation Bible School materials if you're looking for something for your congregation, or just are interested in that. It's really, really great for kids. The Abundant Orchard, there's some Bible study materials, and we have Hunger Action Month materials every October or September, I think. So those are on our website. They're all free materials, and the ask is that if you use them, just to take an offering from your congregation and send that in. We also have in the past offered Harvest of Hope, except for during 2020, and we are debating that again this year, but it is usually throughout the summer, and different parts of our regional offices offer a summer camp. It's summer geared specifically for youth. Others are multi-generational, but it is a 5-day, usually 5-day endeavor where kids come together. They learn about hunger issues domestically and internationally, and then they have the opportunity to actually go in the fields and do gleaning, and then bring that back and do some cooking. So it's a great experience for young people, but that is still kind of on hold to see what happens in 2021 summer. So how can you get involved? I know you all are sitting in different parts of the U.S., but no matter where you are, you could connect us to a farmer. If you have a connection with a local farmer that you would like to connect, that would be interested in gleaning, or just to have that conversation, I will type in the chat, and it's at the bottom of this screen as well, our website, and we have a place that any farmer in the U.S. could click into that, and we'll have somebody reach out and have a conversation with the farmer. And of course, you're always welcome to come volunteer with us. We have the 8 regional offices where that is very easy to connect you with a volunteer opportunity throughout the growing months. And if you're not in an area where we don't have a regional office, we could still connect you. We have, over the last 2 weeks, tried to connect with states where we don't have regional offices. We have many truckloads of these farm to family food boxes that we have desperately been trying to make connections with in local communities where we don't have offices. And Minnesota is one of those. So there's opportunities to glean still. So if any of you have any connections in Minnesota, please let me know. We still have truckloads to move there. So if you're in an area where we don't have a regional office, I urge you to please go ahead and go on and fill out that volunteer form. We just hired a national coordinator, and so she sits in our Virginia office, and she will reach out to you to try to connect you with other opportunities. I know I've had occasions where I have somebody reach out to me, and I send that to our Virginia office, and they're like, oh yeah, we were just talking to somebody in that same area. And so we try to make those connections to see what we can get going. I mean, is there a possibility that we could coordinate a farmer's market gleaning or a community garden gleaning? So those kind of connections are really important. So I'll direct you to that website as well. And the same, these links are all for farmer, for volunteer, for hunger relief organization. If you know of an agency that would like to receive glean products, that can go into our database as well. And when there is something in the area, we'll also try to connect with those as well. Another way would be if you're interested in hosting one of those it doesn't have to be potatoes, produce drops in your community. Let us know, because that can easily happen anywhere in the U.S. They just help to cover the cost of freight and packing cost in those, or one of the farm to family sites as well that I mentioned earlier. And of course, donations are always welcome in any form or fashion. If you donate in a specific state that we have a regional office, that money stays in that state as well. So I think that's my last slide. I've kind of walked through really fast just to kind of give you an overview, and hopefully that will spark some questions. I know in talking with Catherine and Heather, we talked about, how could you, specifically, how could you enter into this space, and those connections that I talked about at the end are some of the easier points. But if you have specific things in mind, please let me know, and we can talk about those. But I would say farmers markets and community gardens are probably the two easiest entryways that we could, if there's no regional office in your state. And Jerry, we do have regional offices in North Carolina, South Carolina, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. I'm the only one that's kind of Midwest. So those are some options as well. So I'll close out, and I'll put in our website in the chat when I close out this screen, and I will open it up for any questions.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you so much, Dawn. That just was really helpful, because I know, I can hear myself twice. I know there's a lot of, people are very aware of food insecurity, especially more so now in the time of COVID. So this does seem like a really easy way to get involved, and one that's actually somewhat pandemic safe as well. So there's some interest in also getting a copy of the slideshow I can see coming through in my chat. So if you don't mind sharing that, that would be wonderful. And I want to open it up. Who has questions for Dawn? Feel free to unmute yourself and just go ahead and start talking.
And sorry, Sue does have a new number. I did not have that on there. She put it in the chats. So if you're in Ohio, Sue is a great contact for Ohio as well.
Well, I actually do have an Ohio-based question, which is, this may be a question for Sue or for you, I'm not sure. But if I live in an area of Ohio where I know there are farms and I know there are farmers markets, but I don't necessarily have a relationship with them, but I can see some sort of possibility for gathering some people and doing some gleaning. Where would you suggest somebody like me would start? It's because I couldn't put a name in and say I have a relationship, if that makes sense.
Sure. Start with Sue, and I can help Sue develop into that. But so like if you're going to go into I have 4 market possibilities here in 2 different counties. What we would want to do is kind of develop that relationship through Society of St. Andrew, because of the Good Samaritan Care Act. If they donate through it to a nonprofit, we would want to be able to help be the organizer behind that. But one, we don't want to recreate the wheel. So we want to make sure that that farmers market is not being gleaned. So we would help make the connection with the market master, just to make sure, is this something that they think their vendors would be interested in, and kind of, so everything would go through the market master, and then they would need to be on board, and then we would need to make sure there's a group of people who are interested in gleaning. So we don't want to start gleaning and after 2 or 3 weeks dwindle out and not have anybody go and do that. So we want to have the market side set up, or the community garden side set up, and make sure we have volunteers who would be willing to commit to that type of gleaning on a weekly basis. So so yes, I would say connect with Sue, and then let her be the main connection to make that connection with the market master, and then help develop a group of gleaners that would be interested in doing that. So you may have a handful and they'd be like, oh, maybe I'll glean once or twice, but maybe we can help, create some other relationships to help in that volunteer base as well.
If I could add to that, I know, Catherine, we've talked about this briefly. I'm hoping that we can start to do some gleaning in the Columbus area this year. That's one of my goals. Obviously, I'm going to have more chats with Dawn and Ann at their office about making sure I make reasonable goals, since I'm only still part-time in this. But I've had interest from volunteers in the Columbus area, and actually in our breakout, Elliot said he'd like to figure out how to get more involved as well, or get his church more involved. So yeah, we can definitely have a more involved conversation. And I think now that I'm with Society of St. Andrew, I have better resources to help make that happen too. So
Wonderful. That's great. And there, Elliot put in the chat here that there is an organization that coordinates all the farmers markets in the Columbus area. I know at least from our parish, we work specifically with 2 hunger relief organizations, and there are countless. So definitely can provide some contacts to those organizations. So that's wonderful. Are there questions?
So
Shy bunch today. I don't know. Oh, Jerry, go ahead. Hearing none.
I was going to say, hearing none. We got a couple of minutes. Catherine, I don't know what the rest of your agenda is, but if we have like 4 or 5 minutes, we can reopen up to other networking conversations that people might want to have. But anyway, so I was just going to throw that out. Not
Perfect.
knowing
I don't
what
have.
yours.
Yes, that's nice. Nope.
Sorry, it's Heather. Can I jump in?
Please
before
do.
you change the subject, Jerry? So Heather, the coordinator of Province 5, part of our encouragement in this, or part of my really, my curiosity around inviting Dawn to be here, continuing that conversation with Sue, is really to help provinces 4 and 5 figure out, is gleaning like a thing, right? Do we want to spend some energy and some effort building relationship in pieces? So I don't want to lose that. And I don't want to lose that in doing some networking stuff, but I'm not sure that it's the place for today's conversation. So that's why I didn't jump in right away in case somebody had questions about nuts and bolts of gleaning. But Catherine and Jerry and I have talked sort of behind the scenes about what does this look like? How do we do some more public proclamation of, provinces 4 and 5 of the Episcopal Church think that gleaning is a vital thing for us to be doing. It is a ministry aspect that we want to be happening. So to really put some public face to that, and then some challenge to the wider church of, hey, Episcopal Church, let's look at this gleaning thing. So I wanted to throw that out there of, just for Dawn and Sue and for the group that I haven't met yet, like this is a conversation that's happening. And with 2 minutes left, I know that we're not going to have that conversation exactly today, but Catherine would love to hear your feedback on that. I would love to hear your feedback on that. Your passion, your interest, where you see those connections would be great. Thanks. Jerry, back to you.
No, 2 minutes is enough actually to not open up other worlds, but to say, okay, folks, beyond just the presentation and the person making it, in a more general sense, what do you think of the food issues and as mission, and purpose and opportunity? So let's just for a couple minutes, if anybody got anything they want to broaden this out and talk about, and throw out there or ask or comment on?
Personally, I became vegan because of our community read book in Kalamazoo, Michigan a year ago. And it's been helpful to spread the word about plant-based recipes so people know what to do with food that they might not be familiar with cooking. And I wonder if there's any movement to give recipes along with food. Methane, that's one thing we can do to reduce methane, is to eat less and less meat, personally.
And more insects, apparently, according to an NPR report yesterday, I think. Eat more bugs. But yeah, there's the educational side of this whole thing. Even if we're not in a church or whatever, where we think we have the opportunity, my church is a little too aged. You got that 80-year-old out there, though. I could probably find a couple of those, for this, but there is still a whole world of education around food and making these connections. Yep.
Don probably has more to say about this than I do, but there's a certain power to the volunteers either being on a farm and experiencing just being on a farm and what it took to grow whatever's being grown there, and whatever's being harvested there, and just to harvest it. And even people just being involved in, the crop drop. Maybe they're just driving a load of vegetables to a drop point or something like that. Or maybe they're in some other capacity that doesn't require a lot of physical labor, but just being a part of that experience is incredibly eye-opening to a lot of people, and I think it can power further actions. So,
Jane, you're
I'd
muted.
like to be. Oh, sorry.
Jane, still muted. She keeps speaking while muted. Still there.
Yeah, there. Okay. Sorry. I'm interested always in the relationship between the garden and school children. And I'm wondering, Dawn or Sue, if there is, if are schools ever part of your distribution sites? In Mineral Point, because there is a school garden and there is a relationship between that garden and every level of the curriculum throughout the district, it just seems like a model program here to me. And I'm wondering, because of kids and vegetables, actually, if there's some way that this ever happens with the gleaning project, or is that just something to look to for the future?
Here in the Indianapolis area, we have kind of, I wouldn't say partner, but the World Wildlife Federation had a funding for the food waste measurement,
right?
And with the Indianapolis public school system, and so I've kind of hung out with them for a while over last, well, that was at the end of 2019. I think it's complicated for the gardens. There's a couple of schools that have gardens themselves, but it's a little bit complicated to donate. I've tried to donate to, even through this farm to family, to get some of the boxes to the schools, and that's been a struggle. I think there is just the risk, or the
it is a risk. I agree.
That piece is hard to overcome. But what has been great is an organization called Food Rescue that is rescuing out of the schools and doing that. So that is kind of what I've connected several schools through that, kind of the food rescue of them, doing the table sharing and then donating that to a pantry, but I can't say I've had much luck in the opposite direction, Jane.
But I'm glad to hear what you're doing about food rescue. Thank you.
So I do want to be mindful of people's time. We're slightly over time right now. So in a moment, since once again, I forgot to open us in prayer, I'll ask Jerry to close us in prayer if he doesn't mind. But I will say, just to reiterate what Heather said, this conversation, and Dawn, we're so grateful that you joined us, because this conversation is part of an ongoing conversation that we're having within Province 5 and Province 4, and also possibly with other parts of the church, to really lift up gleaning as a ministry. Our land in our provinces is so rich and fertile, and really, literally perfect for these ministries. It's necessary during the time of COVID, and also outside, so one that people could participate in more readily. Always just so important and needed. So this will be an ongoing conversation, and so we would love to hear any thoughts or feedback you have about getting a little bit more deeply involved in this in your particular area. Because looking at this group, we are pretty well spread out across our provinces, so lots of opportunity there. The chat text, because there's a number of good links and comments being posted in the chat. The chat text will be posted on our website, along with Dawn's PowerPoint, and the recording from this. Again, there's a group of active gleaners also in Western North Carolina. Wonderful. Thank you, Galen. And with that, if there are no other comments, Jerry, if you wouldn't mind closing us out. Anything else before we wrap up?
Thank you all. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for the invitation, and please feel free to email, call. I'd be happy to answer any questions or make connections. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Really appreciate you.
And so from the 2018 Book of Vocational Services, Episcopal publication, that has an entire section now on liturgies for creation care, I will read one of the collects as our closing. God of order and dynamic change, mysterious God whose imagination and desire embrace all, we seek to discern you in the interplay of forces in the order of chaos of the universe and the complexities of every living system. Give us grace to honor your goodness in what we know and what we do not know, in the world's harmonies and turbulence, and in its promise and change. For you are in, through, and beyond all that is, one God made known to us in Jesus Christ through the Holy Spirit, our inspiration and guide. Amen. So blessings on you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, everybody. Wonderful to see you.